Legal hunting devices. Let's see. Let's read the footnotes. Footnotes are always important. Number 1, if using this equipment while hunting deer, elk, or bear season, you must be a legal big game hunter. See miscellaneous number 8 under manner and means section. Number 2, hunting arrows and bolts must be equipped with sharpened broadheads. Number 3, waterfowl may only be what? Hunting arrows and bolts must be equipped with sharpened broadheads? There's no regulation for minimum cutting diameter, cut-on contact, fixed broadheads only with elk or bear, and you can use mechanicals anyway. Tennessee has no regulation on your arrowheads except for they must be sharpened broadheads when hunting big game. Not every state's like that. Some still prohibit the use of mechanical broadheads due to their undependability. Now, mechanical broadheads have improved greatly, but they are still, in general, less dependable than cut-on contact, full-on fixed blade broadheads. And in general, they are easier to tune because you don't have any wind planing effect with them because they fly more like a field tip. Not all of them fly exactly like a field tip because in the effort to make sure they deploy properly, they have some planing effect depending on the design. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul in some regards. There is no perfect single answer for everything. And if you want a perfect shot every time, perhaps hunting isn't your game. So there's always going to be a little bit of a you factor involved in it that you can't blame on your equipment. Unless you're a member of a certain select hunting club down in Georgia where there's always a warm campfire going and a belly full of pinto beans or something going on, in which case hunting is really probably not what you're really down there for. But so much for that. Listen, what started this particular thing is I've always been a fixed blade broadhead man. I don't really see any need to change. I can get done what needs to be done and know that when I hit, I'm going to cut going in and cut coming out, and I don't have any penetration problems, and I'm only shooting about 62 to 64 pounds if my spring scale is correct. I don't see the need to change. I can tune my bow, but I can have some sympathy for those who might have a little trouble getting theirs to fly right. And so I have for many years looked at the different designs of what alternate things would be like. And I have 2 other broadheads other than my muzzies that I normally shoot to share some of my personal impressions on these. These are not yet field tested, but they are in the quiver, and muzzies are being parked this year temporarily for the purposes of getting some blood on the mud, and we'll see what we're going to do. Now, before we start, I got to say, there was somebody had made a challenge in regards to the Mizuki product. They're people out of Georgia, and that's my only association with them is I once lived in Georgia, and that's where they're from. And I got to show you, they said, try spin testing a muzzy. And a lot of times people's uninformedness will lead them astray. So why don't we just do that and just see if you can spin test it. Some of y'all may not know what a spin test is. Let's get right to that. Did you see any wobble in that head? It's a spin test. Now it works also with arrows. Now here's one that's actually been fired through an animal. This is a three blade and a full arrow. Get a little bit of off-centeredness. This is not the muzzies. This is using the Easton HIDs, the hidden insert. And because they don't have quite the shoulder for it to sit on, and there's a little bit of play for that glue to sit in there, but still quite acceptable. And I use this as an example because same arrows, same arrowhead, same brand, different technology. The arrow, this is an assemblage issue, not an arrowhead issue. You don't blame the arrowhead. This is not a bad arrow either. That little bit's not going to change that flight. This took a doe at 35 yards from a moving tree. See? Still got the blood on it. It doesn't have to be perfect to be a kill. Fixed blade. 35-yard kill. And there's some more evidence that Muzzy is lethal. And if that's not enough for you to show you the strength that a very economical fixed blade broadhead can do, and also to show you that I'm very real, let's show the strength in action. Let's roll that cell phone video I sent down to the boys in Georgia, will you?
What is this?
Well,
bow and arrow? How primitive.
I'm old.
This is a
Shoulders
Tennessee
hurt.
hunting badger. He is such a...
Took yesterday off because my
He doesn't
back
give a
was
shit.
hurting.
Look at that. Probably slung one right down the
See,
middle.
what
Gonna
else
be
can I
showing
use?
and bragging.
First
what
shot
about it?
with the
Look at
practice
this. Look at the
broadhead. Just laid the
No.
thing out.
Why, look in here.
Jerked.
I don't
I'm
believe
hot. I'm tired.
probably
My
trying to make a point or
bifocals
something.
was dripped with
Look at
sweat.
that. Slung an arrow right into that
But
T-post.
it does a...
Look at that.
In every
It's an
rain
arrow
cloud, there's a
tipped
learning
with a Muzzy
experience.
fixed blade
As you
broadhead.
can see, I
Look at that.
missed the shot.
Stuck right into that
But it's
metal.
why-
Look at that penetration. Now imagine
shoot
if
Muzzy.
that was some sort of legal hunting
Here's a practice
animal that
tip.
you're looking to put down safely
But
and effectively and humanely. I do believe that would be an effective way to do it. Guaranteed to
Oh,
cut
yeah.
on contact, cut in, cut
the
out, cut all the
mechanical
way
held up
through.
that. And
That is
these
really something. That Tennessee hunting badger,
Easton
he's real
shaft
bad. Why, he's
held
crazy.
up pretty good
He
too.
doesn't give a
Of
He'd
course,
show
you
us
decide
anything
you
to
get
make
enough
point, wouldn't he?
penetration, but
Crazy.
I do have the bow turned
Tennessee
down a
hunting
little bit.
badger. Crazy.
I have 4 different packages of broadheads here, and these magnets are not really in discussion. I just have them here because I'm going to talk about the actual packaging comes in, because you pay a lot for your product is it because of the package it comes in. How much of it is designed to be in to catch your eye. Now that's pretty good because their particular character that they use, and it does show up very well. And same thing with the Ramcat and their slogan. The Muzzy, they were bad to the bone. They used that for a lot of years. Very simple, very economical, and their reputation preceded them, so they didn't really have to do a whole lot. And then you have this thing that, the way I remember, they were originally a Rocket. Rocket was a company I think has been acquired by this company, Trophy Ridge, and it would appear that they want to make this look like it's a plaque or something. And so a great deal of effort has gone into the packaging of this, which when I'm in the woods, I'm not caring what brand anything I'm carrying. I'm looking for my prey, and I'm thinking about whether or not I'm hearing something. Is that a squirrel? Is that something sneaking up on me? Or is that tortoise walking underneath my feet or whatever? I'm hunting. I ain't worried about what color I'm wearing or whose clothes I got on. Ramcat, interesting design. We'll talk about that. The Stinger, the reason I brought this out is because I never used these because they was a gram weight discrepancy. They were overweight, if I recall, and the biggest issue that I had with them, while they were an attractive design, these tiny bleeders being, I think, would be very effective. They do have a rather large presentation on the head. Now, someone made a disparaging comment. It was their opinion. When I talked about going from 3 to 4, I've not had any penetration problems with anything I've shot. If you're shooting, and it's possible that you've got a youngster or someone shooting a light poundage bow, or you're lucky enough to have your wife or significant person going out there hunting with you and they shoot a lighter pound bow, or even if you shoulder issues and you still want to hunt a vertical bow and you shoot something light. In general, you might say, yes, passing 2 blades through something is going to pass through a little easier than 3 and 4. But if your broadheads are sharp, if you're not so parsimonious that you're using used, dulled up broadheads, I don't really know that that's a big factor. A lot of what I'm going to show you is, see in this illustration, you see how thin that little blade is. There's not a lot of metal for that to pass through. So you might think that a thin blade, 3 of those blades being thin, might actually have less physical resistance than, say, this thing as if it only had the 2 blades. So you can't always say a 2 blade is going to get better penetration than 3, or 3 is going to be better than 4. It doesn't work that way. There's a lot of factors into this. So let's open the packages up. Let's weigh these, since these are the 2 new ones. We're probably done with the muzzies. You've seen them. You've seen they'll take game. You've seen that they're strong. I've carried them for years. I'm going to put 3 of these in the quiver this year, 3 of these in the quiver, and maybe something will present itself, and we'll see what they do in the field. But let's just check these guys out, see these 2 brands out, see what they are. But realize whenever you buy a product, I can buy 3 of these for roughly half of any of those others. And so if you're of the mind that you want something that's effective and right to the point, and you're not really after to impress anybody, muzzy, the traditional muzzy, is still pretty good. If you're having tuning issues or something else, you know, maybe there might be something else that you need to solve. And a broadhead may be a way to address an inadequacy in some other way. It's a personal choice. Something around 1.25 inches, but they're not overly large. and there's one of them, 125.5. 125.8, 125.7. So these are very consistent right off the bat, and they do have a minimum amount of parts, and I know there's nothing from the time I fire this thing to the time it hits where it's going, there's nothing that I have to depend on actually changing or moving its characteristics. That sucker's going to work. Now compare that to the little mechanical broadhead. Now what appeals to me about this rocket is it's also a very compact head. Now I do believe that that's going to fly very well, and it's going to require no tuning, and I like that aspect of it. 123.5, that's underweight, and we know that that little rubber band is going to come off. Here's another one. 122.8, that's also underweight. And this one's got the rubber band on the shaft. You see that? But this is done this way so you can see the effect. And as that goes in, that's a nice angle to get a good penetration, good cut, good through and through with that. And it's a nice compact head, and that head feels very sharp to the touch. I believe that's going to be effective. And it's also underweight. But it's still, design-wise, just looking at it, if that were a fair thing to do, that looks like an attractive, featured broadhead right there. I don't know how well it'll stand up, but it looks like that's a pretty attractive head. And that's 1.25 inches, which is about what diameter I like to shoot my broadheads at. I don't like things to get too large, because as you try to shoot through the rib cage of the deer, you're running into the chances of hitting a bone. And the more likely you hit a bone, yes, the rib cages expand and contract as the animal breathes, but as they do that, if it hits a bone, it's going to take some energy away and reduce that chance of coming out the other side. I don't want to get too greedy with my cut size that I take a chance on not exiting. I'd rather have a few more cuts and have really large cut, if that makes sense. It's a personal choice. So let's see how they fit the arrows. Now I'm running long already, so I'm going to have to try to speed this up very quickly. This is the Ramcat, and whether or not it spin tests very well, I think it does quite well. The unique thing about this one has been actually field tested, so you can see maybe a little schmutz on it. It's been sharpened, resharpened, the blade's held up well. It's a fairly thick blade. I think that's necessary because it is not returned back to the head, such as that typical little muzzy right there is typical of a lot of designs. See, it's kind of a jet fighter shape, D-winged, and it's supported in multiple places, so it's very strong. This is not, it's cantilevered out, so in order to retain some structural strength, I think they made it a little bit thicker, but there's really, in profile, you don't see much blade, and so I don't think there's much resistance as it goes through the tissue. But the unique thing about this is, if you don't get a pass through, and notice that it can't fold up any smaller than that cutting diameter, but these blades actually loosen, the new ones, the threads they loosen on the retraction. So I've got a glove on here so I don't cut myself. But they actually pull so that if it doesn't go through and it comes back, it's going to cut on the retraction. On the pull out, it's going to cut its way out. So it's going to make a hole going in. If it doesn't go all the way through, it's going to cut its way coming back. And there's no way it's going to cut less than that diameter, that 1.5 inches, whatever that was. So we're going to set those. We're going to do a little final analysis on it. It held up quite well. Now, let me take my little glove off. Throw it down there on the floor. Now let's look at the steel heads, the Trophy Ridge rockets. See, one of the things, now you remember these things were underweight, and not by much, but a little bit. One of the unique things I found about this, could be just a fluke, but it actually took me 5 shafts before I could get 3 of these steel heads to go in 3 of these shafts. So 5, for whatever reason, they wouldn't fit in without creaking and cracking these Easton shafts. And Easton is not a cheap low grade shaft. They are made up by a famous company in Pennsylvania where I ordered them. I did custom fletch it to suit me, but the inserts they put in, the HIT inserts. And there's another issue that you have with this particular, I use ST Axis. Unlike, say, this is a STXL, you see where you have that little shoulder, that head with HITs in this type. You see that? The blades actually they can come in and split this. So you have to buy yet an additional part, which is this Broadhead adapter ring. And there may also be another additional benefit, because when you spin test this, are we going to get this on camera? Let's get this on camera. I'm getting a little bit of a wobble. Not bad. Certainly acceptable, I think, considering the profile is very low. But there we have a Broadhead adapter ring, and that Broadhead adapter ring fixes this so this blade can't come back but so far. Otherwise, it can come back and either hit the aluminum or it's going to come back into that carbon. So you still get a little bit of a wobble, looks like, with that. And I don't really have a great explanation for that. They do fly very well. That one's centered very well. They do fly very well. One of these, let me see that. One of these has been field tested. Looks like this one. Now the problem I had with it is it damages the blades. These blades become unusable after the first shot. They're thinner. I had to flatten, beat this thing out for the purpose of this video. They have to be replaced. It's not bad, but from my experience, you're going to have to replace those blades afterwards or replace the whole head. The screws are extremely, extremely tiny. You'll have to have a jeweler screwdriver in order to get in there, and that's something the size of a Watt repair screwdriver in order to get that screw out there to get the blades out. I do happen to have a set of those, but we'll do some final cost analysis of what it's going to take to shoot. Well, what I standard shoot, a standard 6-pack Muzzy, the Ramcats, and these rockets. And I will give the rockets, the Steelhead Trophy Ridge credit. They do fly very well, and they're easy to tune. And I don't really think that little bit of wobble that I received on these accounts to a hill of beans on that spin test. They shoot very well. They're very effective, I think, and I don't think you could be very disappointed with it. But they are not, based upon the analysis I'm getting ready to show you, I don't believe they're going to be your cheapest of the 3 Broadheads to use. Let's move on to the financial analysis section of these 3 heads. Now, cost analysis on these 3 Broadheads. I use standard Muzzy, 4 blades, 3 blades will be real similar. But I buy them 6 packs, $34.99. I'm looking at a typical 2012 mail order catalog. I use local tax, $34.99 per 6 of them, $3.45 in local taxes. That would bring it to like $6.41 per head to do a half a dozen arrows. Looking at the Ramcats, they're $36.99 per 3, so to get a half dozen we need double that, $73.98, $7.29 in tax, $81.27 for the half dozen, or $13.55 each, which is about twice the Muzzy. The Trophy Ridge rockets, the Steelheads, they're $32.99 per 3. Again, double them to get the 6, $65.98. In order to do the half dozen, $6.51 tax. We did have to add adapter rings, so that's $9.99 for a dozen of them. We're doing half dozen. You got to buy it by the dozen. That's $1 for tax. $83.46 for the half dozen broadheads, or $13.91 to do a half dozen arrows. Now, you can often resharpen the Muzzy, and the Ramcats found you could resharpen them. They're both sturdy broadheads. Trophy Ridge, due to my limited shots, limited processing, look like they're going to have to be replaced pretty well much when you sling them. So, but to re-blade them, assume you're going to redo a dozen every time, half dozen every time you shoot them. Shoot virgin blades every time. Just to compare prices, the Muzzy 4 blades, they're going to be roughly $17 plus tax. The Ramcats $28 plus tax. Trophy Ridge Rocket Steelheads are going to run you $22 plus tax. So there you have it. I personally believe any broadhead with fresh virgin sharp blades you deliver on target that's not overly large is going to do a pretty fair job if you've got anywhere decent velocity and mass behind your arrow.